Thanks for choosing to listen to this Late Night Linux Family podcast. We're only able to do this because of the people who support us. None of our shows are paywalled, but our Patreon supporters can get most episodes early and never hear any ads. Learn more at latenightlinux.com/support or support us by telling a friend or colleague about everything we do. Hello and welcome to episode 400 of Late Night Linux, recorded on the 24th of August 2026. I'm Joe, and with me are Wayland.
Are you sure it's not 2017?
Graham.
Good evening.
And Will.
Hello.
Welcome back, Graham and Will. Hope you enjoyed your holidays.
It was wonderful, thank you. Missed you, though.
We missed you as well.
I don't believe him. I'd say nothing.
So it's episode 400. And we're going to do a 400th episode spectacular. What we're going to do is look back at the news from the 400 episodes with a catch. We're only going to cover the positive stuff.
Great show. Night, guys. Yeah.
Right, well, we better get out of here then. No, there is a lot of positive stuff, but we're going to ignore all the grim stuff because there's too much of that going on.
So there'll be zero Firefox news then?
Yes, there is zero Firefox news.
Oh, what about the sock at the football
tops? Yeah. Oh, that was great news, yeah.
How long is 400 episodes in terms of a number of years?
It's about 9.5 years.
Jesus.
So the first episode was January 2017.
Wow. I mean, back then, I was probably just out of my 30s, and now really I'm looking for assisted care places.
Well, before we get into it, just a last mention for the piss up at the Shipwrights Arms, just next to London Bridge Station in London on Saturday the 5th of September. So that's really not very long now. From about 5 o'clock until probably about midnight-ish. So be there and be square. Right, so instead of going chronologically, I've kind of put some topics together. The first one is the funding of open source. That has always been a problem. But we saw in May 2023, Thunderbird come out with a post, Thunderbird is thriving, our 2022 financial report, because they had previously, a year or so before, put in a nag in Thunderbird, please donate to us, and it worked massively. And then in August 2024, we saw a similar thing with Plasma, and a few months later, we saw the results of that, and it has definitively worked. It turns out asking your users to donate to you works.
How many conversations have we had about how to fund projects and how projects can fund themselves? And I suppose I'm quite reserved. I don't like asking for help, but to collectively do that as an open source movement takes something. And I'm really glad that, I mean, Thunderbird email in 2023, and it's successfully funded. I'm really pleased for them. But if Thunderbird can do it, how many other projects can do it?
Yeah, but there's just always been this culture, hasn't there, of it's free as in freedom, but it's also free as in beer. And you start asking for money and people start getting upset, like calling it malware and nagware and all the rest of it. And I think that attitudes have slowly changed. But I remember before we even started this podcast, I think, Elementary OS had this thing where you downloaded it and you had to put in an amount of money. And that amount could be zero. And they're still doing it now. They call it pay what you can. But that was hugely controversial at the time. And it shouldn't have been, but I suppose it was. But we have seen in this last 10 or so years a change where people have accepted that, hang on, if I don't pay for the things that I enjoy using that are respecting of my freedom and my privacy and all the rest of it, they might go away and I'll be forced to use things that are free as in beer, but don't respect me.
I'm trying hard not to bring the negative vibes, but it can work as a model, and it has worked successfully for Thunderbird. But there are plenty of other applications out there who have not had the same success and have not been able to sustain themselves in the same way. But I will say, I think you're right. I think that the general mindset has changed significantly over the last probably 5 years, I would say. Definitely over the last 10, but it feels like maybe the last 5 is where it really started to ramp up a bit more. And I hope that it can continue. And I hope that as you say, like this understanding that you can and should support software that you get for free monetarily or by other means, but mainly it's the money that people need, is a legitimate way of funding open source software, and long may it continue. I think this is definitely a success story on the whole, and long may it increase.
All right, Wayland. It has been so long coming that people drop X11, but we are finally getting there. Like, we started to see it in 2025, and towards the end of it, GNOME and KDE decided that's it, we've got to drop X11, we're going all in on Wayland. And this is a story that we have watched over the last 10 years. As Wayland being introduced as default on Fedora, people working through the issues with it, and it has taken way longer than any of us thought it would, but it is finally happening. It has finally happened, I think. And that's got to be good news.
I think I've been lucky enough that I've been able to use it for, I don't know, the last year and a bit, maybe. And it's been totally fine. There's very little that triggers a reason to go back to X11. Like remoting in with VNC to a faraway desktop or something like that, maybe, because it has a tendency to go a bit crazy. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it's a done deal. I know it isn't, but it feels like one. It's
a bit like school swimming lessons when the swimming pool is freezing, but you know you've got to do it. We had to jump in at some point because X11. What position would we be in now if all of us were using X11 in terms of security, but also the future of Linux? It's something that just had to be done, and even though it didn't feel like the time was necessarily perfect, we did do it, and I'm using it. I have a few problems, but as I said, I'm using proprietary NVIDIA drivers, but mostly it doesn't affect me and I don't notice it anymore.
There must be people listening to this who were using Wayland back when this show started 9.5 years ago, who are just wondering, why are you talking about this? Because it's just been fine for them.
I would find it hard to believe, almost as much as I'd find it hard to believe you're actually able to still use Wayland with your XFCE, just putting it out there.
Well, I am staring at X11 right now, so there's that. But I am making plans to move.
Also, I mean, to answer your point, we did keep using it. I did keep trying, and it did keep failing to deliver what I needed. It really took the end of the line for me to force the switch, because I don't know, weird things like the font kerning and the anti-aliasing and all of that stuff that I just really nailed in my X11 config just didn't transfer over to, and the wobbly windows, that took some while to run.
Well, something we've definitely seen a move towards, and we're not quite there yet, but immutable distros.
I think you meant read-only there, Joe.
Well, read-only, atomic, composable, whatever you want to call it, a new way of doing things. We talked about that last time with Sean and Chris, with the bootc stuff that is coming along. But we've got a post from September 2018, Give Fedora Silverblue a Test Drive. I don't think Silverblue was the very first example of this, but it was certainly the first one I'd heard of. And it feels like a trailblazer to me. I think that we're heading towards a future where this will be a real viable option for most people. And it seems like a step forward to me.
Well, okay, so let's talk about SteamOS on the Steam Deck, where I can see it working exceptionally well. They've got a lot of gamers, maybe who are used to Windows, and there's an open invitation on the power button to switch to Linux, where they can do whatever the hell they want. And for quite some time now, they have been doing whatever the hell they want, installing God knows how many Flatpaks and messing around there. And the system can always be put back to a known state. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how little you might know about Arch or Linux or whatever. And that does seem to be the way forward. I just wish I'd been able to drop my 20 years of configuration files and installing random downloads to be able to commit to it myself. But I do really like the idea.
It feels very appliancey. And that can be a good thing, and I think it has its place. I just don't know if it'll ever be the place for me. I can absolutely see the point in it, and I think it's good as a choice to have it there. I'm still on the fence, though.
If you were like just getting into Linux today and you were kind of learning it all, I could see myself getting quite excited by the idea of creating a load of kind of YAML to describe what I want to be installed and how I want it to be configured, and then just deploying it from there and then starting again and deploying it from there, and always just modifying those configuration files rather than tinkering with the live system. I could see that being really interesting.
That's a fair point, because I remember, back when we obviously started, like, it was dare you blow your monitor up if you do an install and you do it badly, like, and that was a genuine fear and a genuine thing. And you had like one hard drive that was barely big enough for Windows that you were trying to carve out an arse of to stick Linux on. You're like, what's a bootloader? I fucking have no fucking clue what a bootloader is. Lie? Why is it? I thought it was meant to say lie low. Balls. And it's like, it's a terrifying way to learn a new thing, that it's like, we do tightrope walks across the third rail in a fucking train track. Like, it's just not good. But exactly, I can totally see that point. But I can also see that it sort of abstracts the OS away, and I don't like that. It's like, I don't want to develop on my phone, for instance, because it's a chunk, it's a solid the OS image that was downloaded. I'm never ever going to look into that, really. And I don't really want that to be my OS for my PC either, sort of thing.
But to put in front of a non-technical user, an appliance makes a lot of sense, or can make a lot of sense. And I don't think we're quite there yet. I mean, there's loads of Silverblue users who would, again, be saying to me, hang on, I've been using this for 8 years and it's absolutely fine. But we are going to get to a point where this approach to Linux makes sense for a whole lot of people. I think you're right, Phenom. I don't think it'll be for everyone. I think we will continue to have standard distros for essentially power users, the likes of you.
I mean, I've got to say, Bootsy was great in the fact that it did show a way that you could flick from one to the other. And I think that is very powerful. And I quite like the way that is, because I don't like the way we have this sort of the immutable camp and the non-immutable camp. It'd be good if there was a way of, I'm doing this, that, and the other. I'll do that with the immutable side. And if I'm doing my own machine, then I'll do it without. It'd be good to keep it that way, sort of not so entrenched, maybe. Because we're real good at that.
I do think this is probably one of the biggest changes we've seen throughout the run of this show. Like, when we first started, it was the early rumblings of it. And now, nearly 10 years later, we've got SteamOS, for example, and we've got Silverblue and KDE Linux that are like really getting there. But the other big thing has been gaming, like what Valve has been doing. Introducing a new version of Steam Play in August 2018, and that was Proton. And for me, that announcement, what they've been doing with Proton, has unlocked absolutely everything else, right through to the Steam Deck, the Steam Machine, and the Steam Frame. I think without Proton, we just wouldn't be here.
This would be a contender for one of the best good stories of the last decade. I mean, in so many ways, not just like a company like Valve directly investing in Linux and open source, doing things the right way, but also solving that what seemed like an impossible technical challenge of making Windows games, Windows binaries, run on a Linux system at the same speed and sometimes even better on a brand new kind of Linux platform, effectively. It's staggering and done kind of in the open, iteratively, in a way that everybody kind of felt part of, and resulting in Steam machines and the Steam Deck and gaming on Linux. And just who would have thought it? And youngsters these days, they just don't know how good they've got it.
Don't know they're born, do they? But for me, I don't think that technical marvel is really the amazing bit, because it was always a technical problem. We had Wine before. It was just a case of, throw enough development time at it, enough resources, and you will find a way. I mean, they have proven that you can play all these Windows games on Linux. But for me, it was solving a different problem. The problem was, how do we get games on Linux? Well, the obvious way would be make the games for Linux natively. But Valve realized very early on that was just not going to happen. And so they had to do the technical solution rather than, I suppose, the social solution of talk these studios into doing a native version. When all they've got to do is just ship the Windows game and it'll just work on the Steam Deck because of the technical work that Valve has paid for, it just solves the problem. I mean, that's not to detract from the massive technical achievement, don't get me wrong, but I think that was such a smart move by Valve.
But for years, many of us had tried to use Wine to run games. There was crossover games from Codeweavers, and everything, just the performance was terrible. I can't remember what it was now, but there was some amazing innovation, some, I don't know, just-in-time compilation or whatever it is that's doing the pattern matching that they're doing, where they identify collections of commands running on Windows and identifying just a single command on Linux. That stuff, it's just to even know that it was possible, it's just brilliant.
And I also think that a lot of studios are probably looking at the Steam Deck as, you know, not a Linux device, but as a console to hit. And that has done so well that I think it's become sort of the added extra bonus in the fact that if somebody aims for that as a device, then Linux users get it for free. And I think a lot of studios try to maybe say, well, okay, we can do a Linux port. We've seen a few stories over the decade or so where they've said, you know, these are the users you want to get because they're the technical users who'll help out. And I know, obviously, Linux users always get a bit of a bad rap about being able to get worked up and annoyed about everything, but they are seen as good users to have too. So it's good all round sort of thing. We all benefit from the whole thing. Also, Gallipoli just came out on Steam on last week, and it's very good. So get that. It's native.
Well, also, you could argue, well, Steam's proprietary, Valve is a proprietary software company, but almost all of the work that they've done here is open source, and the likes of, say, Casio OS that you've got installed, or at least you tried on your weird crypto board, whatever.
Yeah, it's still running. Yeah.
Yeah, that benefits from all the work that Valve paid for.
Yeah.
So it really has benefited all of Linux when it comes to playing games.
It's especially interesting that you say all that, Joe, when I know that you're not particularly a gamer and you still find this exciting and very positive news.
Yeah, because a lot of people play games. Like, I'm not blind to this idea, and I do play the odd bit of Sonic and whatnot.
Not particularly a gamer. I'm sorry. That is the most massive understatement of the century.
Okay, I play instruments, not games. What can I say? I've said that before.
And darts. He's a professional darts player too. Don't mind that.
No, I do find it exciting because what's good for Linux is good for everyone using Linux. And I know people who were diehard Windows users because of the gaming thing who are now using desktop Linux because they can play the games on it. And so this has enabled more people to use Linux, and we've seen that in the numbers going up. And I know not everyone plays games. We've had emails about this, and I know. I mean, I don't really play games, but lots of people do. And I think the kind of person who plays PC games is necessarily the kind of person who tinkers with computers, and they're the kind of people who are just an obvious target for desktop Linux.
I think for all of those YouTubers who try Linux instead of Windows and everything works, and then they realize, oh, wait a minute, this operating system is not actively working against me. This is much better. And the word will spread from there to the youths who watch YouTube videos and streamers and that kind of thing. So I think that it's, as you say, Joe, I think this is good for the entire open source community as a whole. It will bring much more people in.
All right, the next one, Phelim cannot argue with this. This is unequivocally good news from May 2019, announcing WSL2, Windows Subsystem for Linux.
Brilliant.
This is good.
From the people that bought GitHub and then used all your open code to train LLMs, it's WSL2.
Look, there are people who are forced to use Windows for their job, and now they can have a properly integrated, blessed Linux virtual machine. I mean, I say now, they have been able to for the past, whatever it is, 7 years.
Cygwin is good enough for those people.
Come on, this is good. This is good because it keeps people in the Linux world, even when they're forced to use Windows. Like the gaming thing, it sort of is a way to showcase Linux to people who otherwise wouldn't be using it.
If you say so.
It is. Back me up, someone.
I totally agree with you. I mean, are Linux numbers going down? No, I don't think so.
They could be 20% now, though.
Oh, come on.
I suspect you'd be horrified, Phelim, if we had numbers on how many people were using Ubuntu on WSL.
Oh, I'd say it's massive, but I think, what if we could have not given them that, but just made it easier for them to move over?
Well, I have heard rumours. Let's just put it that way. So I have no way to substantiate this, but I have heard rumours that there are more people using Ubuntu on WSL2 than there are using Ubuntu desktop.
But that's got to be obvious. There's so many Windows desktops out there.
Yeah, I mean, where are we with Ubuntu? Probably in the low tens of millions versus the, 1 billion or more Windows installations. So it would just make logical sense that even a fraction of those users are using WSL, yeah. But I do not believe that we would have more Linux users if WSL had never come along.
I'm not sure it plays a factor. I would like to see some good PhDs done on this.
Yeah, it's an unknowable, I think, because
Yeah.
you can't do the counterfactual.
Sure, money messing anyway. It is good, I guess, that we give it to him. I don't know. I just do feel like, though, we are giving away the crown jewels for nothing. But anyway.
No, because it's not the best experience. It's a taster. It's like the first hit being free or whatever. It pulls people into Linux, I think.
I think Joe's absolutely right, Phelim. I don't see how it can work any other way, because the two things are so different. When you get a taste for the way that Linux operates, why are you going to bother putting the Windows in the way next time you want to try it? And also, if that's what you use Windows 4 to run WSL on, so what?
Fair enough. I think you're both being far too nice.
When WSL 1 came along, everybody was worried that it was just going to eat all of Linux desktop's lunch and that nobody would need to run Linux desktop. And I think we said at the time, we think it'll bring more people into the fold. And I think that has proven true. I think the good news here is that Linux on the desktop has proven to be resilient amongst these alternative ways of interacting with Linux on your desktop computer. I don't think that is ever going to change. I think that the evidence is out there. If you have access to the numbers, then the evidence is that more and more people are using, in particular, Ubuntu, but Linux generally, across Windows. And yeah, as Joe said earlier on, there are a lot of people who cannot and want to use Linux, and now they can. This has got to be good news for everybody.
All right, well, something that I think is good news because it was ultimately not much of a story in the long run was how one volunteer stopped a backdoor from exposing Linux systems worldwide. Jia Tan. This is from April 2024. It feels like it was yesterday, but here we are, over 2 years later. This was the XZ Utils thing where it looks like probably a state actor, but I don't think we'll ever fully know, was very, very close to sneaking in to this open source project that is massively widely used, a vulnerability. And thankfully, it did not happen. And I thought we would see further attempts, and maybe we have seen further attempts that were successful and we don't know about them, but I don't think so. This is good news because it's no news, in a sense.
I think we were both lucky, and also the system did kind of work in the way that we expect it to. It is the single engineer who was annoyed by a second delay on a connection who went, why is it doing that? None of us can do that with any proprietary software, and to think that they've got any better resources than we do is just fallacy. And all software faces these challenges, and I think it was quite a good example of how loads of different projects, loads of different people all got together, analysed the data, figured out what the hell went wrong, and then went, yeah, this is what happened. I think it is a bit of a showcase. I mean, it was a bit of a dodged bullet, but I think equally there's a good side to it as well.
Yeah, it could have been this massive disaster, but it wasn't. Like you said, we had processes in place to catch it, and thankfully they worked. All right, well, we have to mention Mars. The fact that Linux was running on this helicopter Ingenuity on Mars from February 2021 till about the end of 2023, early 2024. It lasted way longer than it should have. It proved that Linux is a robust operating system that NASA and other space agencies can use in space. This was basically our go-to positive news that we kept going back to in, frankly, quite grim times, especially early on with all COVID and everything. It's just unequivocally, not even Phelim can talk shit on this one.
I wasn't going to talk shit. Jesus Christ.
Exactly, you can't, because it's so just positive.
I only talk shit when there's shit to be talked about. There was no shit in this. I mean, next time I think they should stop playing Fortunate Son every time they fly the helicopter, and they could preserve a bit more battery life. But I mean, whatever.
Well, I get the feeling we'll be talking about more Linux in space over the next 10 years because it was just so successful.
I can't remember if this was news or I dreamt it, but I'm pretty sure there was a discussion about the next generation of helicopter and how it was going to be even bigger and have even bigger batteries and last even longer, and that was going to also be running Linux. So I think that, as we talked about at the time, this kind of proof of concept, this proof of technology has been a massive success. And yeah, as Joe said, we're going to see more of this. It would be really cool if the next thing is another helicopter, not necessarily on Mars. I don't know if it's even feasible to fly on other planets, but it would be cool to see more helicopters flying around on Mars powered by Linux.
And just more stuff in space powered by Linux generally, because NASA is very, very sticky on old technology because, you know, it has to work. They send it off and there's no patching it, or if they are going to patch it, it's very difficult to do. And so they have quite antiquated software stacks.
Robust.
Yes, robust. And it was apparently quite hard to convince the higher ups to let them use Linux. And it was only on this kind of side quest, essentially, that they allowed it. But it has proved itself. And so hopefully that will pave the way, I suppose, for further Linux use, not only with NASA, but with other space agencies as well. So there you are. Relentless positive news for a whole episode. Don't get used to it. But with that, we better get out of here then. We'll be back next week when we'll probably be doing some more up-to-date news. But until then, I've been Joe.
I've been Phelim.
I've been Graham.
And I've been Will.
See you later.